But I will throw it over to Michael Adams to get us started whenever you're ready, sir.
I'm ready. I'm ready. So listen, thank you. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Thank you very much for joining today. We're gonna have some fun. We're gonna have some fun today. We're gonna talk a little bit technical, right? We're gonna talk a little bit about who Converge is. We're gonna talk about IBM Power, where it fits in the marketplace, where customers are using it. We're going to also talk about what your options are, because I know that looking at the attendee list, we have a mix of attendees that are familiar with Power, because they're some of our customers, so we appreciate that. And we also have some new people. So we're going to cover both perspectives. And then certainly, as Annie said, you know, Jim is going to wow us today, and I'm looking forward to it. I know I got the 3 bottles of wine, and I was like, this is fantastic. So again, appreciate everybody. So I'm a principal technology advisor. I've been with Converge, and I'll take you through a little bit of who Converge is. Been with Converge now for 25 years, you know, in the industry. And my role really is when you learn a little bit about Converge, you're going to see that there's a lot of aspects to it. And so my role is to educate customers on what Converge brings to the table. Also a former IBMer, so I come from that background as well. So that's a little bit about who I am. You know, we're gonna keep this loose and fun, but you're going to get some good content. You will also get this presentation at the end. So Tom, would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mike. I am Tom Neal, and as Annie already mentioned, I am a Power Partner Specialist within the IBM ecosystem, and I have the very lucky job to be able to support Converge from East to West Coast for all of their Power server needs and software. So happy to be here, happy to talk today for you guys, and really looking forward to this event. And I'd be remiss if I don't say, go Bills.
All right.
Oh boy. Yeah, see, I told you we're gonna have some fun. Tom knows I'm a Dolphin fan, and I'm reeling. So, anyways, but seriously, Tom, I appreciate you participating today and being part of this. You have a lot of knowledge in this area, and I do appreciate it. I certainly don't take it for granted. And Jim, our Somalia, which Annie set the bar pretty high, like the best in the world. You know, this honestly, this is my first experience with Jim as well. So I'm really excited about it. So Jim, why don't you give us a little bit about your background, please?
Sure, thank you. Go Bills, by the way.
Oh, jeez.
I had to. I'm Jim, your sommelier tonight, and I'm coming from you from the fine wine room right behind me here at Addie's Fine Wine and Spirits, just outside of Buffalo, New York. And I'm very lucky to work here. I've been at this store for almost 10 years, serving as their sommelier. And before that, I worked in Freedom Run Winery up in Niagara County, and I worked there as a winemaker and a chemist. And then after that, I went to the New York Wine and Culinary Institute in New York City for 2 years training to get certified as a sommelier. Then went out to the Napa Valley Wine Academy and did the same out there. So at this point, I've got 6 or 7 certifications, and we'll be planning for what we're going to do tonight. But I'm very, very excited about the 3 wines we're going to show you from Italy. All 3 are absolutely outstanding, top quality wines, and I'm so glad to be here drinking them with you. So I'll see you all in a few minutes. Thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic. All right, let's get into it. Let's get into it. So this is the agenda, as I mentioned. All right. So I know, as I mentioned, some people are familiar with this, others are not, and there's good reason for that. You know, we were formed starting in 2017, as you can see. We were formed through acquisition. I was part of Lighthouse, which was acquisition number 6. You can see on there. And we've continued to do acquisitions just to give you an appreciation for the magnitude of Converge. You know, because I think it helps when we're talking about our reach and our customer support. You know, I was with a partner that was 80 people, 100 million, and we focused on one thing. And now with Converge and all those acquisitions, we can really focus on a lot of different disciplines. And we're going to touch on them today when we talk about a little bit about AppMod, but certainly AI, and we'll get into that. But we have the skills. I'll talk a little bit about our IBM delivery team and our solution architect team. And really, we're just there to be a trusted advisor and to help guide you. You'll see when I talk a little bit later, for those people that are ultimately interested in power, or they have power and they're interested in what the next step is, I'll walk you through some of that. So just know that Converge is there, to support you across all of your journey. And then really, because I know we have people from all across the country, we have a global reach, right? So, these are where our locations are in the US and Canada and Mexico. We also have facilities over in Germany and the UK. I think the important thing is that we're there. We're in the ability to support you both from a selling perspective and certainly from a technical perspective. We also have 6 data centers, and that's important because one of the options I'll be talking about is our enterprise cloud for customers that are looking to maybe host their power environment or have a DR location. And I'll get a little bit into that, but we have 6 data centers, and also in Mexico, that's where we have 500 people for part of our managed services. So, and we'll talk a little bit about that because there's some nice power options offered by IBM and by Converge to actually manage your environment. We find some customers like to own that responsibility. Some customers are looking, and it's not specific to power, but some customers are looking to move that to someone like Converge, and then they focus on other initiatives. So we'll get into that a little bit, but I just want you to understand a little bit about Converge. This is the full gamut of what we bring to the table, whether it's analytics, AI, app mod, cloud, cyber, DI, or digital workplace, which is everything on the end user side. The approach that we go through, and this is really the value, I think, of Converge, is our AIM methodology, where we can give advice, implement, and manage. You'll see it today, just from a microcosm of IBM and IBM Power. We're going to have potential solutions, potential paths. So we don't try to silo customers into one option or another. We listen to their requirements, we give them advice, and we give them technical guidance along the way. Pros and cons, TCOs, we'll talk a little bit about that. Tom will talk a little bit about that. We're kind of an exclusive partner to IBM, that we have some access to some tools, and we'll share a little bit about that with you. And that's a little bit about Converge. And then if you really look, so now you look at the impact of IBM Power. So what I tried to do here is to align where the Power platform, and particularly some of these topics that we're going to cover today, provides a lot of value across our solution sets that we go to the market with. So, and we're gonna touch on them today. We're gonna keep it, high level. You'll have some good content, and then certainly, the wine is certainly part of the show as well. And then really, we are there. Our AE team, our BDR team, Annie. You'll find that we're there to help you as a follow-up from this. So this is really just the beginning of the discussions, and from those customers that I've had the pleasure of working with you in the past, this is the continuation of those discussions. I think it's important, when you talk about Converge, and I talked about the acquisitions, and there was a slide that talked about over 1,000 vendors, and that's important because we understand what the marketplace is, we understand what the vendors bring to the table, and as an advisor, as a part of our AIM strategy, we're able to compare and contrast. But make no bones about it. I mean, IBM is our #1 vendor by far. Right? I think 13 or 14 of the acquisitions were IBM, partners specifically. We have a wealth of knowledge. You'll see that when we get to our team. But I just really, again, want to acknowledge the strong partnership and relationship that we have. And I can only put this slide up for one vendor because there only is number one. But it's important that you know if you're dealing with Converge, we are tied in. We are tied in with IBM, and Tom can certainly comment on that from his perspective. But we sit at the global BPACs, the power BPACs, storage BPACs, and all the advisory councils. You know, we have a long heritage. Myself, I was 13 years with IBM. That's where I started my career. And there's others. And when we get to our delivery team, you know, there's 400, 500, 600 years of experience. So we know this environment very well, and we're well positioned to support you. That's a little bit about Converge. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jim. And Jim, take us through.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mike. I hope you're thirsty. We've got a beautiful way to start the night this evening. We're having a Zardetto Conegliano Pedane Prosecco. I didn't say Prosecco, I said Prosecco. If you're in Italy and you meet an Italian winemaker and you call it Prosecco, he will ask you to leave. So the proper pronunciation is Prosecco. Now mine is right behind me here. If you notice it, I still kept it in an ice bucket. It's really important that you keep all sparkling wines really cold, 35 to 40 degrees. Much colder than you would a white wine, much colder. Now, I purposely did not open this yet because I wanted to show you the proper way to open a sparkling wine so no one gets hurt. If you don't believe me, just go on YouTube and search champagne fails, and you'll see some unbelievable explosions and people getting hurt. So the proper way is I've taken the foil off already. I'm removing the cage. Cage is that little metal wire thing on the top. As soon as I do that, I'm going to cover the top of that with my thumb, and then wrap the rest of my fingers around this thing. And then from the bottom, I'm gripping it with a towel, and I'm going to slowly start turning. And I turn from the bottom, not the top. When you turn from the bottom, you're going to get much more control when you open this thing. You don't want it shooting all over the room. You want to save every beautiful drop of this. By the way, this is the highest ranked Prosecco out there. It's a DOCG, which stands for Denominazione d'Origine Controllata e Garantita, and that means DOCG. You'll always see it on the label of every Italian wine, DOCG being the highest, DOC second highest, IGT third, and VDT, which means table wine, fourth. So they won this beautiful Prosecco that we're enjoying tonight. This is a very top quality Prosecco. Now, don't confuse this with a champagne. That's a totally different animal. This is fermented in a tank, which makes it inexpensive. Champagne is fermented in the bottle for 4 years. That makes it a lot more expensive. So this is more of a party sparkling wine. So I have a flute right here. You can use any kind of glass you want. Most people use champagne flutes just because that's what they thought is best. It's actually not the best. The best glass you can have is a tulip bowl, like on Raiders of the Lost Ark, when they do the champagne, there's a tulip bowl. But anyway, so I've got my champagne flute, and I'm looking at the bubbles. A quick note, the finer the bubbles, the higher quality of the Prosecco. If you look carefully at your glass right now, the bubbles are very, very small, and they're very organized. We call this a bubble train, and that bubble train indicates to me this is a very expensive Prosecco, and it ranges between $25 and $30 a bottle. So Prosecco, that's an expensive sparkling wine. So got this beautiful golden color. You sniff it. On the nose, you're going to get white flowers. You're going to get peaches, apricot, green apple, all kinds of beautiful things. Let's take a sip, everybody. Cheers and welcome back. When you enjoy this, you should be getting an explosion in your mouth. All kinds of fruits, very, very citrusy. Lemons, limes, apricots, peaches, oranges, they're all exploding in your mouth. The reason for that, your mouth should be drooling right now. And the reason it's drooling is sparkling wines as a whole have a tremendous amount of acidity in them. Acidity is a good thing. That's what allows all these wines, these Proseccos, champagnes, to pair so well with anything. I drink champagnes, and when I drink it with buttered popcorn. When I have this Prosecco here in Buffalo, we have it with chicken wings, because the acid in this beautiful sparkling wine will break down the fats in the chicken wing, and it's an absolutely perfect pairing. Goes well with pizza, goes well with cheeseburgers, fried onion rings. Anything with fat in it is going to be met beautifully by the acid in this Prosecco. I'm going to have another sip. It's very, very dry. And the funny thing about sparkling wine is if it's dry, it's not called dry. It's called brut. And this is a brut Prosecco. This is very confusing, but a dry Prosecco is actually sweeter than a brut Prosecco. So when you're buying any kind of sparkling wine, I suggest you back off and go into the brut or extra brut. If you go into the dry, it's actually going to have a lot of sugar in it, and the sugar will really hinder the pairings. It'll mask a lot of the taste of the food. So when you are buying, if you want to stay in a reasonable budget, continue with Proseccos like the one we had, but make sure it's dry, as brut. It says brut on the label. If you're going with a high-end champagne, something like that, do the same thing. But you're going to spend between $50 and hundreds of dollars for the champagne. So this is a wonderful sparkler. Keep it cold though, like I had before. I had it sitting over here in this ice bucket for an hour before the show. Mine's barely above freezing. And that's how you want it. This is a light, crisp wine that pairs with anything at all. The alcohol is about 11.5% ABV, or alcohol by volume. That's very typical of a sparkling wine. They're all in that range, whether it's from France, Germany, the US, all range between 11 and 12%. So that's very, very typical of where they're at. So you can drink it for quite a while and you'll be just fine, just fine. So any questions on the Prosecco? You can yell them out too if you want. I don't mind at all. Okay.
I'm not seeing anything in the chat. Thank you, Jim.
Okay, they're thirsty. Let's let them drink. I'll see you in a little bit, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jim.
And Mike, before you jump back in, we had a question in the chat, and the question is, you talked about how Converge can help going forward. Is there a charge for that assistance?
I'll touch base on that a little bit later. No, there isn't. I think what you'll see, Annie, is we're gonna actually talk about options and helping customers. It's a great question. Helping customers getting them on their journey. If they have power or they're looking at power. We'll show you some options, we'll show you some paths, we'll talk about that. But really, when we're invoking our solution architects on this subject or any subject that I had on that last slide, our solution architects and our pre-sales team, and then certain assessments that we do, and I'll highlight one a little bit later, those are all our value to our clients. We have to learn the business before we earn it, and that's one of the ways. So the answer is no. We help with these type of assessments, and you'll see that in a little bit later. Okay, Tom, over to you.
All right, can you guys hear me okay?
You're fine.
All right. All right, so I think we have a mix of both existing power clients and sellers, along with some folks who may have very little idea of what we might be talking about when we say IBM Power. So therefore, I don't want to get too much into the weeds here, but I'm going to cover a variety of content at a pretty high level. My goal is to really just hit you with some buzzwords that generate enough interest to maybe drive some follow-up meetings, possibly another event, right? I mean, who doesn't want a little more free wine or maybe even some bourbon next time? Who knows? Or we mix them together. I'm maybe doing that back in my college days. Anyways, so let's hop right into it here. So why Power 10, right? That's really the question I hope to answer for all of you by the end of this presentation. First, I just want to take a quick look at the slide that we have up, which is what we like to call one of our IBM Power 10 server sparklers. This specific sparkler focuses on our customer base. And the reason I'm showing this is I want to give you the perspective of power servers' relevance in today's market. So if you look at it, and I'm going to focus here on the right side, 10 out of the 10 top banking and healthcare companies are running their mission critical workloads on Power. 9 out of the top 10 insurance companies, 8 out of the 10 top 10 retailers are also running IBM Power. There's obviously a reason why Power dominates in these 4 major industries, which I'm going to get to here very soon. But again, I just wanted to kind of paint the picture and give you some perspective on the relevance of the product we're talking about today, in the market. So, Mike, you can go to the next slide. So this is another sparkler. I'm going to brush over this real quick because I'm really going to get more into detail later on. I think the takeaways here are some of the numbers and stats that you're going to see on the screen. 45 of the top 50 largest revenue generating companies are active power customers. We're the most reliable, and I'll get into the studies that have been done, but we call that the 5 nines right there, right? 9.999% with no downtime. So, Mike, let's go to the next slide so we can start digging into this. All right, so now that you can kind of get a picture of how relevant and important IBM Power is in the market today, I want you guys to take a quick look at what I'm actually talking about when I say Power 10, right? This here on the screen is our fleet of servers. We have servers that span from one socket servers to high-end servers that are with 240 cores and at a max of 64 terabytes. So obviously huge, massive workloads. Those are our enterprise class of servers. They're really designed for your maximum application density and performance, really powering those large scale mission critical applications. Then we also have our scale out servers, which are really an essential scale out hybrid cloud platform server. And they really are helping clients scale their core applications, especially in a hybrid cloud. We can classify these as entry-level systems, or we also call them enhanced performance and scale systems. At the end of the day, we got servers that will cover your big enterprises down to your small mom and pop shop. So there's something here for everybody. And also, I do want to point out too that when using the term power, we are referring to the architecture really in an abstract way. But although what we're really referring to is aligned with the actual physical processor. The processors are what we call power. They are the heart of the system. They are what really differentiates an IBM server from your standard x86 processor type server. IBM does release a new power processor every 3 to 4 years. Currently, we're on Power 10, which is what we're talking about today. That was released back in late 2021. So at some point next year, we'll hopefully see Power 11. But when switching to Power 10, we significantly enhance the per core performance, our security, the reliability, and what we'll talk about later, the AI capabilities, especially from our Power 8 and Power 9 chipsets. So Mike, we can go to the next slide here.
Just want to add, Tom, and it was back to the question that came in earlier on the chat about assessment. So you look at this slide and you see mid-range, high-end, you see a bunch of different models, right? And for anybody who's new to this, it can be a little bit overwhelming, but don't worry. Part of our solution architect assessments, we'll look at your workloads. If you're an existing Power customer, we understand the performance metrics of the older boxes versus the newer boxes, and we'll right size accordingly, but yet still give you some opportunity to scale up or scale out. And if you're certainly running some workloads on Intel, we'll take metrics there. Look at those workloads and properly position you. So it's great to know that IBM has answers across all different customer sets and segment sizes, but don't worry about trying to figure out which one. That's the value add that Converge will bring. Back to you, Tommy.
All right, thank you, Mike. All right, so this slide is going to highlight some of the most common workloads that our customers really run on IBM Power servers today. By no means is this an exhaustive list, but I think there's a few here that we really would like to highlight that really stand out on IBM Power. First one, SAP. I think everyone knows what SAP is. And SAP and IBM have been co-innovating together for decades. The Power team specifically has been working very closely with SAP, I believe since 2015. And the partnership has just grown and grown very quickly, and they're continuously delivering new features, functionality that really continues to enhance the client value. And I know Mike will get into some of this later as far as some of the offerings that Converge offers itself in their own clouds. But I can tell you a target workload that does very well in their cloud is SAP. So Oracle is another one I'd like to highlight. Clients have a long history of choosing IBM Power for Oracle databases and application deployments that are really crucial to many of their core business functions, right? And I know, I'll say that the largest Oracle payroll ERP system in the world, that is primarily running on Power. Another one is Epic. IBM Power and Epic have very close technical relationships that involve, continually exchanging technology roadmaps. They have regular attendance, contributions at each other's technical meetings, very deep collaboration there, and really trying to resolve client issues. And if you think back to that first slide that I showed, you think the top 10 out of 10 healthcare companies or hospitals are using Power. This is probably one of those applications they're using it for, right, in the healthcare industry. And then IBM Power also has a long history of running databases, data management workloads, including IBM DB2, Oracle databases, as I've mentioned previously, popular open source databases such as Postgres or MongoDB. And then lastly, the one we absolutely have to highlight, because it is the largest growing platform on IBM Power today, is Red Hat OpenShift. Power 10 really, the processor itself really allows clients to run more container software on a lot fewer servers. So it really delivers significant improvements, and the economics are outstanding for your cloud native applications. We claim that Power provides a 4.1x more containerized throughput per core than any x86 server running Red Hat OpenShift. So to me, that translates to doing a lot more work on the same number of containers. And I think that's a compelling set of reasons to move forward with app modernization on IBM Power. Mike, did you want to interject here? I know it's
100%. Yeah, specific to that app modernization earlier, when I showed who Converge is, and one of the segments that we had is app modernization, and that encompasses a lot of things, but specific to what we're seeing in the marketplace today. And it gets back to that AIM strategy, where we can look at customers' current challenge, where they're going, and help provide solutions. And one that we're seeing relevant right now is the announcement February 4th, when Broadcom took over VMware, and just the market disruption, and that's a polite word, that we're seeing, so much that we formed a SWAT team at Converge to help our customers navigate that path, and really, running OpenShift on either new Power or customers that have existing Power and want to add LPARs to run OpenShift and containerize that, and kind of get away or supplement existing workloads that they may be running under Broadcom VMware, and giving them other options, because customers are clearly asking us for other options based upon what's happened in the marketplace. And I suspect pretty much everybody on the line here knows exactly what I'm referring to. Just a couple other things. Manhattan, we see that a lot in some of our distribution and warehouses for order processing, shipment, and inventory. And then, as Tom mentioned, SAP HANA. When you look at cloud solutions, IBM Cloud is the only one that's certified in SAP HANA. So those are the kind of things that we work with you on, is to make sure that if you're moving something to a proper landing zone, it also is the proper landing zone from certification perspective. Because with Epic, all of them, all those VARs that manufacture those products and solutions, they have stringent criteria for what meets their requirements. And we follow those best practices from those vendors. So good stuff.
All
Back
right,
to you, Tom.
Let's keep it moving. So in an annual CEO study that IBM does conduct, I don't have the exact amount of CEOs, so in my notes I wrote a significant amount to add some oomph to this, but I can't give you the actual number. But they were asked what their IT priorities and challenges were for the year. And this is what they came up with. So for top priorities, as you can see, 48% said productivity, And profitability, 45% said tech modernization. Then for our top challenges, 42% said sustainability and 32% said cybersecurity. So the reason I wanted to show this, because I think it really leads into our next slide that shows, again, why Power 10. If you're an existing Power customer today, or you're new, you're interested in the platform, this is the next slide, Mike, and you can switch, I think, is hopefully where some of the stuff may hit home. So as I mentioned before, 45 out of the top 50 US Fortune companies are using Power today. Why? Because it's reliable, it is sustainable, it is secure, and it holds record-setting benchmarks and performance across all applications. It provides an absolute unbeatable platform for app modernization, and as previously mentioned, with a 4x performance of Red Hat OpenShift. And as we will get into very soon, it's AI ready. So I just want to quickly focus on each of these segments, right? So for reliability, company called Information Technology Intelligence Consulting, they do an annual study called ITIC Global Server Hardware, Server OS Reliability Report. Kind of a mouthful. Gonna need more wine after that one. The report compares the reliability and the availability of 18 mainstream server platforms and 12 operating system distributions. And it also provides an in-depth look at the internal issues that have potential to positively or negatively influence the reliability of servers and operating systems. So this is the point I'm trying to make that I think is awesome. It is noted that for the 13th straight year in which IBM Power Systems, and alongside IBM Z, has achieved the highest level of uptime availability based on every single metric and measure of reliability. So when doing a corporate survey, I believe 9 out of 10 corporate survey respondents said using Power, they registered, again, going back to the first slide, the 5 nines, 99.999% availability, and only 1% of our IBM clients gave a poor or unsatisfactory client support rating. Again, top rankings across the board. This study was done against all Dell, HPE, Lenovo, you name it. So absolutely the most reliable server on the market. Security, another big topic in today's discussions, right? So when you think back again to that first slide showing the top companies in the banking, healthcare, insurance, and retail, all using Power for their most critical, mission critical applications, it's really the security features on Power 10 that I think are probably one of the main reasons you're seeing all, the from top to bottom, the top companies in each of their industries using Power. From the Power system was really designed for security, right? Security was designed into the processor. It's been designed into the hypervisors, the operating system, the communications, the storage, the applications, and also there's built-in hardware cryptography. So security features really are designed with this server to specifically help users comply with security-related requirements, including identity and access management, hardware and software encryption, communication security capabilities, and also extensive logging and reporting of security events. So Power really is the most secure and open system in the market. It's built for today's most demanding standards, and it's also built for the future anticipated standards, being that it's quantum safe and fully homomorphic encryption as well. So a lot to say there, and a lot more to get deeper into around the security of the server, but that's it at a high level. And then performance and sustainability. I usually like to talk about these two together because they really go hand in hand. Whether you're upgrading from one of our Power 8 processors or comparing to an x86 server, the Power 10 processor ranges anywhere, I believe, between 30 to 80% per core performance improvement over the x86 and older generation Power chips. If anyone's interested, I'm happy to send out all the benchmarks on all the servers. There's so many of them but obviously out of respect for everyone's time today, I'm not going to go through all the benchmarks. So you're just going to have to trust me, I guess, on this one. So with the improved per core performance, strength, and really energy efficiency of our Power 10 processor, it really can just be stated as you can do more with less. So if you're moving workloads to Power 10, you can make the move with less cores and a smaller footprint than what you were using before. So perhaps what needed 3 servers previously can now be done on 1 server or 2 servers, right? This means a significant reduction in energy usage, power, cooling. It means significant cost savings, right? When you're dealing with your software licenses that's licensed by the core. I mean, think of Oracle, right? And that not only impacts the initial acquisition cost, but it's really impacting the ongoing software maintenance costs that you have for all the licenses and software over time. So lastly, and not lastly, but last on this slide, AI, right? So let's talk about AI and on Power 10. And I'm sure everyone is probably already sick of this slide. So we can, Mike, let's move on to the next one and get a little bit more in depth on our AI capabilities. I think I have about 30 more slides to go from here. So Mike, I'm going to need you to be on point and ready to click when I say next. We got to move quick.
You don't have 30 slides.
It might be, oh, I think it's 2. Okay.
Yeah.
So what is the world talking about today? Yes, AI. AI is everywhere. It's part of every conversation. So where is an IBM Power 10 server really relevant in an AI discussion? I think there's so many ways to address this topic, and it's almost been a challenge to kind of present it today, to talk about AI and power, simply just because we don't have the time, and there's so many different ways to look at it, and there's so much value there. So I guess with what I talk about next, there's the real takeaway for everyone on the call, I guess, would be to remember that there's going to be no specialized hardware, meaning GPU-less inferencing. And remember this term, matrix math accelerator units that are built into each Power 10 core. And if there is interest in this very light version that we are going to be providing today, I believe Converge is offering extra bottles of wine to set up a follow-on discussion with one of our SMEs. I could be wrong, but I think Annie had mentioned that at some point. So I'll defer to Mike on that after. But if you know there are things that trigger some interest here, we really would like to set up some follow-on discussions. All right, so when we talk Power 10 and AI, we like to say running AI in place. It is AI at the point of data, since you are able to operationalize AI inferencing directly on the Power 10 processor. So each Power 10 core has 4 new matrix math accelerator units, often referred to as MMA, not to be confused with mixed martial arts like I did at one point in time. No, Dana White has nothing to do with AI on Power, unfortunately. So these MMA units are the alternative to external accelerators, which we know as GPUs, that all other servers would require for the execution of statistical machine learning and inferencing workloads. So this obviously reduces cost. And with our Rocket software included with Power 10, it leads to a greatly simplified solution stack for AI. And also comparing to some of the AI capabilities on our previous processor generations, the MMA units on Power 10 that have been added have up to a 20x performance impact over our old processor chip. So something really interesting to note too if you guys are running Power 8 or Power 9 today. And Mike, you can go to the next slide.
It just kind of went on its own right midstream. I didn't hit it, but
That's
now
fine.
we're there.
That's fine. We're getting to the end here, and I'm starting to lose my voice and want some more wine. So, this slide, Power 10 is built for AI, really based on these 3 main ingredients, right? Accelerate, orchestrate, and safeguard. I'm not going to go deep here, right? But I did already briefly touch on the accelerate minus really getting into the software stacks that come on Power and that complement the hardware to really provide a fully optimized AI stack. It is worthy to note some of the inferencing numbers in the top right there versus x86, right? 42% more throughput for large language models, 39% more requests per watt. And our favorite term that we like to use when comparing Power to x86, the total cost of ownership, right? So the TCO is 51% lower over 3 years. And, like I said, give it the time. I'll briefly touch on this last ingredient here, which is safeguarding your AI data. Safety, risk, vulnerabilities, compliance. These are all probably top of the list of what the customers are really thinking about. And if you think back earlier in my presentation of the unparalleled security features that I wasn't able to get too deep into, but that were lightly mentioned on the Power 10 chip, this is a huge advantage for AI on Power, as AI models will most likely possess a very sensitive data at large scales, and it absolutely needs to be safeguarded by appropriate data governance and different security mechanisms. So won't get into all the features, but there's features like transparent memory encryption, supporting end-to-end security, and on-chip cryptographic algorithm acceleration. Say that 3 times fast. So with these different security features, you can absolutely run AI directly right where your data resides securely without having to move your data off the device to off-device accelerators such as GPUs. It's interesting, I know. So that's really it for this slide. Mike, you can go to the next one. I don't know how we are on time. This, I think, is, and Mike, I think we said we're going to be sending out this deck, so you guys will have access to this. I think this is a great reference that kind of paints the picture of where Power is the best fit for cost and performance. When it comes to AI, obviously it's not the best fit for AI cradle to grave, but it really it has its advantages in the inferencing categories, deep learning, machine learning, and with generative AI, your foundation models. So I think this is a great chart to reference and to have if we do send it out.
That is a good chart. That is a good chart. Next slide, Tom.
Yeah, how are we on time? I mean, I don't have too much more. That we do have some use cases here. I could kind of go through one if you want, or we can move on.
Tom, why don't you just touch base on the hospital?
Okay. Yeah. So first one, use case in the top left. There's a pathology department of a hospital in Thailand that had 2 use cases where pathologists they were doing too many things manually, right? So one of them was visual processing. So not to get too into it, but when a specimen or a probe arrives, pathologists have to first conduct a visual rough inspection of it. And to take notes, what were they doing? They were taking a pen, they're writing down notes about suspicious tissue. That process takes minutes, right? And instead, they implemented an approach of it allowed the pathologist to freely speak to their inspection into a microphone that was recording everything they said. And it was based on an AI speech to text application that fills out all of these forms that they have to fill out automatically that lowered the processing time from minutes to seconds. And the other part of it was the digital processing. So in a later step, when those probes those specimens became available in a digitalized form, the pathologists have to conduct additional analysis on these digitalized probes that are aided by image analysis tools. So the average analyst time was like two weeks. And by supplementing existing image analysis tools with appropriate AI for screening and overlaying, the hospital managed to reduce that process down to just a couple of days. And the platform they did that on was Power 10. It really helped to establish a trusted platform for the hospital where patient data was secure and applications are reliably available to pathologists while responding very timely. With that in place, obviously the hospital can now help a lot more patients in a lot shorter period of time. And I think the takeaway here from the technology perspective is comparing that to x86. Not only is the total cost of ownership of that solution cheaper, but they were able to achieve a 25% faster inferencing rate than they were achieving on x86 server with NVIDIA GPUs. So a pretty basic standard use case, but thanks for letting me spend some time on pointing that one out, Mike.
So I just had this one last slide that I added because we touched on a little bit earlier. This is really more for takeaway for the audience, but customers that have existing power infrastructures, there's now another use case other than the standard use cases we've talked about, and it's really the app modernization. Looking for ways to run OpenShift, Kubernetes, and do that, in a cloud environment or an on-prem environment or in a hybrid environment. So, this is an area where Converge can help. If you find interest and you say, geez, I never thought about that. Let me see how this works. Let's do a proof of value, proof of concept. Converge is there to help. So I just wanted to have that because app modernization, as I mentioned, is another key area. Hey, Jim, back to you.
Great, thank you, Mike. Thank you. Welcome back to Italy, folks. We're going to change up gears now. We're going to go to a red wine, a very big, full-bodied red wine. And that means before we start, you should have a glass of water. If you have some crackers around, anything to cleanse your palate so you can start over. Huge difference between whites and reds. The whites, like the sparkling wine we had before, are full of acid, and the acid makes you drool. The red wines are full of tannin. Tannin is the compound found in the skin of grapes that gives the color, the texture, and the dryness to the wine. So from now on, in the next two wines, we're going to enjoy them. Instead of your mouth drooling, you'll be just gasping for air. You'll feel it in your teeth and gums, and it dries out your whole mouth. That's the tannin. That's by design. Now, we are lucky enough to be going to Italy tonight, which you may or may not know is the world's largest producer of wine. They have been for the last 5 years. And there's a lot of reasons for it. Number one, they have 1,200 varieties in the country that they can choose from. Number two, all the wines by law must be organic. There are no insecticides, no preservatives, no food coloring, nothing outside of the grape and the water. And that's why you can enjoy 2 or 3 bottles a night and you won't get a hangover because it's all organic. And that's very, very rare in today's society. So the first one we have for you is from the Piandoli vineyard, and it's from the 1100s. This place has been around forever, and this is their Super Tuscan, their Super Tuscan Red. And Super Tuscans, for those of you that don't know, are blends. They're blends that were first made in Tuscany to try and compete with the French, because the French had no Bordeaux red blend, and the Italians thought we can make one just as good, if not better. And that's how the Super Tuscan came to be back in the 1970s. So this is a fabulous example of one. Imprimis has a top-of-the-line Super Tuscan. They retail for between $35 and $50 for the reserve, which is what we're going to drink. The special thing about this wine is it's a 2013. We're drinking an 11-year-old bottle of wine tonight. So I am thrilled. I'm so glad to be here. You'll see on the label it says 2013. One important note about seeing the year on a label, that does not mean it was the year it was made. It's not the year it was produced. It's the year the grapes were harvested. And that's really important because you need to know what harvest years were good and which ones were bad. For example, in Napa, 2019 was one of the worst ever because they had a forest fire there. So you avoid 2019 like the plague. And then the year after, in 2020, they had one of the finest years. So when I look at a wine label, I need to know, if I have a wine that I'm in love with, what happened in the vineyard that year. And in 2013, this was a beautiful year for this. So let's pour ourselves a glass of this. Any wine glass will do. I prefer one with a big bowl on it, just so it gets all the aromas. Pour yourself a beautiful glass. Now let's take a quick look at this before we sip. This has got a really dark garnet color, and that's because of those tannins. This thing has been laying in tannins for 4 years. They aged this for 4 years, so it's a super high quality wine. Now with older wines, once in a while, you can look at what's called the rim variation, where the wine meets the glass, And sometimes if you hold a piece of paper on it, you can see the color change of the wine on the edge of the glass. It goes from red to pink to orange. That's an indicator of age. And if you're ever at a wine party and you think it's an old wine, you just tip the glass and look for the rim variation. You can tell if your host is giving you a vintage wine or not. That's the quick way. Another thing you should know about is when you swirl this and stop and hold it on its edge, you will see legs or tears forming down the side of your glass. And that is an indicator of alcohol. The slower the leg moving, the more the alcohol. So I swirl it, I tipped it, I can see my legs forming. This has about 13% ABV, or alcohol by volume, right where it's supposed to be, more than the sparkling wine we just had. Now, before I drink this, I'm going to swirl again and get as much as I can on the side of the glass. Reason being is when I stick my nose in there, I want all this evaporated water and wine to go directly into my nose. So I'm going to swirl it and sniff it. And then you can pick up all the subtle nuances on this nose. This has red cherries, blackberry, dark chocolate, some floral, cassis, a lot of different things happening on the nose. It's a very complex wine because it's had 11 years to age and it's matured over that time. So this is a beautiful wine to bring out. I wouldn't even pair this with anything. It's so good I'd want to drink this by itself. Let's take a sip. Make sure you swirl around all parts of your mouth when you get, the bitterness, the sweetness, the sour, all places. Like I said before, your mouth is drying out right now. That's because this is a very heavily tannined wine. But you should be getting all those fruits we talked about before. You should also be getting some minerals. It's almost got a dirty taste to it, earthy. The technical term is called forest floor. So you get all these different things going on in the wine. You can still taste the alcohol. When you breathe in, you get a slight burning at the bottom of your throat. That's the alcohol talking to you. But I can still taste the fruits in the tip of my tongue. I'm still getting that cherry, getting that blackberry. I'm getting the tannins, the sourness on the side of my tongues and my gums. This is a great example of a very complex wine. And again, this is a blend. A Super Tuscan is always a blend of 3 indigenous grapes of Italy. And the biggest grape in here is what's called the Sangiovese grape. That's the biggest grape in all of Italy. And they use that and mix it with 2 other locals. And they come up with this beautiful, beautiful wine. And some of these wines, these Super Tuscans, go for extraordinary amounts of money. And investors just eat them up alive. In the room here, I have Saskahaya wines to my left that are going for $800 a bottle. And that's because they're one of the first Super Tuscans in the 1970, 75, 76 years. So anyway, fabulous wine, very deep bodied. It's a sipper. Don't rush through this. Enjoy everything about it. And it will, as you are in the next presentation still sipping on this wine, the taste will evolve. The oxygen will get to that wine and make this change in even more ways. You're going to pick up other subtle nuances like the dark chocolate and things like that. Some people even get vanilla on the tongue. So enjoy this for the next 10, 15 minutes through the next presentation. And we'll talk about it when you get back. Any questions before I let you go?
Jim, I got to admit, like when I go out to drink wine and see people who are much more knowledgeable than myself and they do the swirling, I kind of thought that was to kind of aerate the wine, but you just educated me that it was really to coat the inside of the glass so that you can get the scent and distinguish the characteristics of the wine. So that's very good. That was very good. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome, Mike. Okay, I think we're good. Cheers.
Awesome. Okay, so we talked a little bit about who Converge is. We talked, Tom did a great job covering power, where it can help from modernizing workloads as well as AI. We've had our second sip of wine, and now I'm just going to bring us home because this is really where how Converge can help. So I just want to educate people, especially for the new people that haven't had any experience with Converge. This is what I talked about IBM being our largest practice, and this is what our IBM team looks like, from a power perspective, storage, IBM I series, AIX, Linux, one of the slides that Tom had earlier, when he talked about the power servers, there was the OSs on there, and a lot of customers, I mentioned Manhattan, that runs on IBM I. So we're very well versed with this environment, and you have to be more versed than just the server itself. It's the workloads, it's the migration, it's the integration with cloud, it's backing up, it's understanding the operating systems, and certainly for the storage behind it. And certainly, from a support perspective, making sure the boxes are current, and from a managed services perspective. So we have a full team that's all they do is focus on IBM technology. And they're at your disposal from a pre-sales perspective, and I'll talk a little bit about it when we actually look to help you, figure out what the right solution is, what it looks like. But then there's also, how do you get from where you are today to where you need to be? And those are the questions that any executive or anyone needs answered before you re-platform anything. Is, what does the migration look like? How do I minimize or eliminate any impact, any downtime? And then certainly, how do I make sure that I have proper backups, immutable backups, and all those things. So that's really what this team focuses on. So these are some assessments. I talked about it a little bit, so I won't go into details now, but we have a power environment assessment, which certainly looks at old and new. We can compare it to x86. We also have this independent discovery and analytics assessment, which is really valuable when you start looking at, if you're replatforming, or moving something. You have to understand what's impacted, what the connections are, what the application interdependencies are, what the network looks like, what the performance looks like, because anytime you touch anything or lift and shift or move something, there's a whole bunch of different interdependencies. And this independent discovery analytics, we call it an IDA. It's a service we do, and it gives the customers end-to-end from their application stack all the way down through the servers, through the storage. Really allows us to make collective and smart decisions together. We're not guessing. We present this information so that a customer has a blueprint of where they have, and it helps us define the blueprint of where we're going to go. And then, talking about AI, right? So we have a pre-flight assessment, right? So really, a lot of customers, we see this a lot. They understand that they want to do AI. We've been doing it since Watson, IBM Watson. We had some developers on that they beat Kyle Jennings on Jeopardy. That was part of a Converge team that were some of the developers there. So while ChatGPT brings AI to the surface for a lot of people, it's something really that's in our heritage. But when it comes to AI, customers, they typically have some projects that they're thinking about. Maybe it's a good use case, but they're not really sure where to go. And that's where, and I alluded to before, but that's where we have these assessments. This is our investment in you. And a pre-flight assessment. And what does this mean? You reach out to your rep, or you reach out to me, or anybody from Converge, and we line up a session with our AI people and our data scientists. We give you a little bit of a questionnaire and say, what are you thinking? What are you thinking to do? Are you looking to do, call centers? Are you looking to do, look through all your contracts and make sure that all the T's and C's and find variants? Are you looking to use, secure models internally and have data go out to some of the LLMs out in the cloud, but you want to make sure that there's no HIPAA or PCI or any type of social security data? And we have, secure GPT offerings that act as firewalls for that. So, but the bottom line is, when you come out of that session, you have kind of a framework, and also it helps from an organizational perspective. You can bring in the right people, because there's governance that needs to happen. There's data feeds that need to occur from an analytics perspective. And that really is what the focus of this is. Customers have gone through this, and really it helps them understand what AI can solve, right? Because we're not just trying to sell a product, we're really trying to solve a business outcome, and either make money or save money or make you more efficient. So that's what our AI pre-flight assessment is all about. So don't hesitate to take us up on that. And then, Tom, you want to talk about this? Because this is, I touched on earlier our value in our partnership with IBM, and this is one of the benefits of that. So, and Tom Neal, who's on this call, obviously, was a key instrument in allowing us Converge to have access to this. So, Tom, if you could just touch base on this a little bit, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate those kind words, Mike. And it didn't take much to get Converge access to this, being the significantly amazing partner that you guys are. I think Converge is absolutely top premier partner, especially when it comes to IBM Power and their expertise. So this, what we're able to do is through IBM, Converge is now licensed to for a tool that can get pretty in depth on total cost of ownership through a company called Precision IT. And whether you're upgrading or looking at upgrading from older Power chips to the new Power 10, or if you're running x86 for certain workloads and you want to explore just upfront costs versus overall cost, total cost of ownership, Precision IT does an outstanding job of getting you very detailed data down to everything from the software to the hardware, what it's going to cost up front, what it's going to cost you over a few years, and they'll do a side-by-side comparison of both solutions. So we partner with them. We own licenses to use this tool, and Converge has full access to it. So I really encourage everyone to, if you're interested, just to kind of see what it might look like cost-wise. I think you get with all the right data, you get an assessment done in a couple of days. So, and it's really revealing on what the value and the cost of what IBM Power can bring. So, yeah, absolutely would ask you guys to leverage this. And I know Converge is already leveraging it, and leverage Converge to leverage this, right? Absolutely.
Yeah, it's important because we're asked all the time when we're doing assessments or when we're doing looking at investments and large investments for customers. They're like, all right, show me an ROI, show me a TCO, and this allows us to be very precise and prescriptive because it's a process. The same way I talked about the IDA earlier. It takes that manual process out of it, and it uses tools and interrogation to provide a consistent answer to help customers with the TCO. And we're doing great on time, by the way. So when at a high level, and I have a few slides, and it's more for a takeaway. So what are your choices? If you're a new customer or an existing customer, and you're looking to re-platform or expand. And I just want to touch base because you do have options, and that is really the value. We're here. Converge is here to help you with those options, help you figure out what the right option is based upon your business requirements. And everybody's business requirements are different. You certainly have on-prem, and it's interesting. A couple of weeks ago at Dell World, one of my peers was out there, and he took a screenshot from Michael Dell's presentation out in what I call lost wages, but Las Vegas. And, it said that by 2026, 83% of companies are going to be doing a repatriation back to on-prem or into a hybrid cloud environment as opposed to just staying in the cloud. Me personally, Mike Adams, I think that number's high, but it is a trend. It is a trend that we're seeing and people are seeing in the industry. So I thought that was telling. So certainly the traditional having it in your data center, or if you have existing environments, expanding it out to capitalize on some of the app mod and certainly the AI things we talked about today, or just new workloads. A lot of customers, that we're dealing with, like Converge with many acquisitions, customers have acquisitions, and all of a sudden they want to consolidate and leverage existing tools, environments, frameworks, and Power 10 is a perfect way to just expand that out. And Tom talked about the scale up, scale out architecture. So we'll help you with that. But there are cloud options, right? And we work with all of them. And I have a slide or two, IBM Power VS. So it's public cloud option. So if you want to host your environment in IBM's cloud, there's an option there, and I'll walk you through it. I mean, one of the key differentiators there is if you're an SAP customer, it's an SAP certified environment. And then there's managed service characteristics of it as well. So again, if you want to, kind of get out of the business of the data center, you can do it Power VS, right? And then Power VS Private Cloud is taking that same concept, but bringing it on-prem so that the assets are actually in your data center, but it's still, there's a managed service component from IBM, and then certainly from Converge as well. And then there's Converge Enterprise Cloud, as I mentioned earlier, when we had the chart that had all the dots on it. We have 6 data centers. And, that's an option for customers that, may want to move platforms from an on-prem location or a DR location into a secured facility that's also managed by Converge. And sometimes also if there's bespoke environments where it's not just, let's say, power, they want their VMware environment, they want their backup environment. And then we have a lot of flexibility there because we own those data centers and those colos, and we can help. I don't say dictate, that's too strong of a word, but we can help be flexible with customers in taking their existing assets there. And then similar to IBM Power VS, the public cloud option, Converge also has a public cloud option, and we call it internally IP4G, but it's IBM Power for Google. A lot of similar characteristics to Power VS. The thing is, sometimes customers have commits, to Google for other workloads, and they want to use those commits and they want to buy things on the marketplace. And that is, if you go to Google and you go to, Power, IBM Power and Google, that is really a Converge offering. That's one of our sweet spots up there. So there are options. And we, I'm doing a high level now, but we will walk you through those options as part of, our next steps going forward. And these are really some more takeaway slides. So I see we have about 20 minutes, and I know we have another wine tasting. So I'm gonna more leave you these slides. But as I mentioned, IBM Power VS is in IBM's cloud, and really it's a managed offering, where you scale up, you scale down. And there's a lot of management from the LPAR down, from which is handled by IBM. So there's a nice managed service component there. And then Converge, can manage the other things around that. And then Power VS Private Cloud is a new offering from IBM. They basically took that same concept and they basically bring it to a customer's data center. So you can have that same cloud experience in a private cloud offering. And then I mentioned enterprise cloud and our 6 data centers, and these are where they are. There's a few more. There's actually some in Europe as well. But we manage, IBM. We have LPARs across all the disciplines. And then I mentioned, sometimes customers come to us and they say, we want you to manage, a DR data center, or we want to manage our environment. So there's more to it than just the power footprint. There's, a virtual footprint, and that can be OpenShift as well. We talked about that today. And then Veeam and other backup technologies. And then I mentioned the last one is IP4G, is doing the same thing, managed by Converge, but it's actually hosted in Google Cloud. And happy to talk to you in more detail about any or all of these options. Okay, Jim, back to you, my friend.
Great. Thank you so much. Michael, that was interesting about the repatriation of the workforce, the trend.
Yeah.
I was wondering what that's going to be like in a few years. That's fascinating.
Yeah. We're seeing it. I like I said, I think that number's high, but it's if you know, if Michael Dell's on main stage and he's talking about that from what they're seeing, there's a trend. So, yep.
Wow, that's
Yep.
crazy. It's crazy. All right, guys, welcome back. We saved the best for last. This is called a Antologia Barolo, and it is considered by all wine enthusiasts and Wine Spectator magazine to be the king of Italian wines. This is the one that collectors go for. When they're building their cellars, they want a Barolo, and they want one from Antologia because they have been around for hundreds of years. Now, unlike that Super Tuscan we just enjoyed a few minutes ago, that was a blend. This is 100% Nebbiolo grape. It's one grape in here, one grape, and that's all. Now, if you're going to your boss's house, you need to impress him with a really good Italian wine. The words I should leave you with are right at the top of this cigar band. It's called DOCG. When you go to a wine store and you need to find a really good Italian wine and no one's around, look at the cigar label, the cigar band right here, and find the letters DOCG. That is the highest quality Italy can offer. So if you take that to his or her house, you'll be a hero. So this is a great example of a DOCG from Piedmont, which is just north of Tuscany. So pour yourself a glass of this one. By the way, you should be serving these red wines between 60 and 65 degrees. They talk about room temperature. That's a fallacy. You need to have these wines slightly chilled. Otherwise, they'll taste flabby. At 70 degrees, they will taste flabby. So what I suggest to people is the 20-20 rule. And if you can write this down, it's really important about serving temperatures, the correct serving temperature. If you have white wines, you bring them out of your refrigerator 20 minutes before you're going to serve them. If you have red wines, put them in your refrigerator 20 minutes before you're going to serve them. And that will bring you to the ideal serving temperature for that wine. If you don't remember anything else tonight, just remember that. So first thing we're going to do is swirl this wine. And we're going to look for those legs on the side. Now you should get more pronounced legs than you did 15 minutes ago with the Super Tuscan. And that's because this wine has 14% alcohol. 14. This is a high octane wine. And that's the way Barolos are made. They're very proud of their high octane wines. Let's take another swirl. I'm going to swirl it on the table because I usually spill these. And let's take a sniff. Let's stick your nose right in there after you swirl it. That one is very, very different than the Super Tuscan we had. This time you're getting notes of cranberry, dark fruits, figs, rose petals, cedar, even leather. Some people say they smell a football in this wine, and that's the Nebbiolo grape. That's what it's known as, a very earthy grape. So people who love Barolos are people like high alcohol wines that are very rich, they have tons of tannin, and things like leather and dark fruits and so forth. Let's take a sip. That is wonderful. Very complex wine, very complex. Has a lot of dark fruits that we saw before. Also, notice you're drying out. It's very astringent, but you're also at the same time, this is kind of strange, you're salivating as well. That's because the Nebbiolo grape has this rare quality that dries your mouth out and salivates it at the same time. There's high tannins and there are high acid levels. It's a really strange wine, but it does both. So it's very complex and changes over time. If this is the wine you choose to drink the rest of the evening after the show is over, in an hour from now, it will taste completely different. You will get more dried herbs, earthiness, minerality, stone, wet stone, all kinds of things on the palate. So it changes in time. But a Barolo, again, this is considered the king of Italian wines. Investors, this is what they want to buy because of this 100% Nebbiolo grape. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I am. Again, this is from Piedmont, which is just north of Tuscany. Those two regions are the big regions in Italy for big red wines. This will age for 25 years. As long as you lay it on its side so the cork stays moist, it will last 25 years and get better every year. So it's a beautiful wine that you should see in a wine cellar. Do not stand it up. The cork will dry out, oxygen will get in and will kill the wine. So always lay it on its side. Beautiful, beautiful wine. I absolutely love this wine. Had this for my anniversary a couple of weeks ago, and it was a big hit with everybody. Again, it's DOCG. Look, when you're shopping, look for the DOCG on there. You'll be a hero. Any questions on this wine? We've got the rest of the night to enjoy all these wines, so you should sleep really well tonight. Okay, I guess I'll turn it over to you, Mike. I think we're done here.
Yeah, this is it. This is the last slide. So just a lot of the stuff we covered today, particularly with Power 10, you scan this QRC code, you'll get it in your presentation as well, but it'll bring you to Converge's webpage that talks about this. It'll show you some sample configurations, ways to reach out to us, but certainly you know us now, so you can reach out to us directly. So I just really wanted to take the time to thank everybody for their time today. I hope you find value in it, not only in the wine, but in the content. I know everybody's busy and we had an hour and a half and you guys gave us your attention. So on behalf of Jim and Annie and Tom Neal, my co-presenter, I just really wanted to thank everybody for their participation and definitely look forward to working with you guys going forward. Annie, is there anything you want to close out with?
Thanks, Mike. Absolutely, there is. I will be sending out this recorded session as soon as it's available. And we mentioned it a couple times, but we didn't formally say we are offering a bottle of wine if you book a follow-up meeting. So I will get that link out to everybody. And we hope to see you for another meeting to discuss everything that we learned today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.